So I'm curious, you had started to talk to me about some of the other sad stories that you'd seen during your service time. Um, can we get into those a little bit? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and
So
this is somewhat of a jump, obviously from direct like your story, but this isn't hearsay. You were directly witness to these events.
yeah, yeah. These were my friends that I served with. Not a story that was told to me. This is
Right.
the stuff that they told me about their lives.
Okay.
So I had one friend that um was accused by his commander at the academy his senior year, and if you make it past your sophomore year, you owe 2 years to the Air Force. So as soon as you step into class that first day of your junior year, you're committed to the Air Force one way or the other.
Right.
So this is now his senior year. He gets accused by his commander of fraternization based on a freshman, an underclassman, female, who he had texted. There was a text chain was the supposed evidence, and that was it. There was no one-on-one time spent. It was always in groups. So anytime
Okay.
that he was with this female cadet, he was with other cadets. There was never any
Okay.
one-on-one time. Okay. This cadet was under his charge. She was in his organization, his flight, and so it was his responsibility to maintain the morale and welfare of his troops.
Yeah.
And so
Like you're
he,
actually taught to do.
yeah, and so he took his troops out for dinner a couple of times, or took them out for a hike on the academy grounds because it's right there at the mountains. It's beautiful. In between that and the texting, his commander accused him of fraternization, inappropriate relationship. He was asked point blank, "Are you having an inappropriate relationship with this female cadet?" And he said no. The commander, who is the sole investigating and deciding authority on this topic, found him um, or essentially charged him and found him guilty of fraternization. No trial or anything. This is just commander's discretion.
Right.
Um, and then slapped him with an honor violation because the commander was then accusing my friend of lying about it because he was asked the direct question of, "Are you having an inappropriate relationship?" Once the commander defined that yes, he was, the follow up was the honor violation, and that's what got him kicked out.
Which again for viewers reference here at a service academy, so like the Naval Academy at Annapolis, Military Academy at West Point, Air Force Academy here in Colorado Springs, you do have the honor code for cadets, which is we will not lie, steal, or cheat, nor tolerate among us anyone who does. So his air officer commanding AOC was accusing him of violating the honor code by lying, even though he was attesting to no, I was not fraternizing with a
Right,
freshman.
right.
And I feel like that's somewhat more common knowledge as far as fraternization, but like in the military, fraternization would be of a higher ranking person having an inappropriate relationship with a lower ranking person. And they very much simulate that. It's in active duty military, it's very much around officers interacting with enlisted, and they somewhat simulate that at service academies with upperclassmen and freshmen. So for everyone's reference there.
Yeah.
So, and I even, it's even such a improper procedure that his accuser was also hit the uh, judge and jury on the verdict.
Right.
So which gives you an idea of military justice is not exactly often a due process by any means. I'm even more surprised though. Was this before like was I mean honor boards? I thought were something that were much more extensive and is
Yeah.
actually very much a due process. So what if he accused him of an honor violation? Did he not go through a whole honor board?
No, he did. No, honor board found him guilty because
How?
they have to assume that the frat hit is legit.
Why do they have to assume that?
Because that's already, like, if you look at like a due process, right? That's already established. Like the honor
Even though it
board,
wasn't a due process, so like basically he had a conviction.
yeah,
That
but that's outside the scope of the honor board. Honor board only looks at honor hits. They don't look at frat hits. They don't look at commanders' decisions. They don't look at any of that. So they have to assume that the frat hit is legit.
I question the whole have to assume component. That's
But
that's
they're not, the honor board is not looking at, was this a frat hit or not. They're looking at, did he lie or not.
right. But the only way you can determine if he lied or not is if the frat is legitimate. It's not like this is a
Yeah,
great mental leap to get there.
yeah. But they were essentially, I think they were essentially told, like, you have to
They were
assume that the
told.
frat hits. I'm
Exactly.
assuming here that part is hearsay.
No,
I
I
don't know
mean,
what
I
happened
feel
in the
like that's
room.
a valid assumption on your part. There's no way they weren't told that.
Yeah. So
Uh,
yeah, he got booted, went back home. A couple years later, got a letter saying, "Here's your enlistment date," and had to go back and serve 2 years as a senior airman, I think.
I hope he, landed on his feet and ended up having a good job that way. He sounds, I mean, I have no idea who, I don't know this guy, but it sounds like he was a good dude if he was actually just trying to take care of his guys.
He was phenomenal. Um, he was he pissed me off all the time. He was the dude that would eat nothing but Doritos and Dr. Pepper and score a 450 on his PT test.
God.
450 out of 500. Like,
Yeah, I'd say the cadet uh, physical fitness test at service academies is pretty freaking rough, and it's on a 500 point scale. So if he could get
250 is,
450,
yeah, and 250 is
I
passing.
yeah, I think my best ever was a 412.
Yeah.
Like, and that was yeah, uh, that was an anomaly for me, unfortunately.
No, he was
So,
a great dude, absolute beast. Last time I talked to him, yeah, he's landed on his feet, but he did
but
his 2 years and then moved on with his life and now has like nothing but bitterness in his mouth about the whole thing.
understandably, just that alone, the whole like, oh, you have to assume the conviction is legitimate is that's even undue influence uh, for them to just say like you have to assume this.
There's a
Uh,
lot. There's a lot wrong with the honor process at the
yeah,
academies. I love the intent. The intent's
right. I
great.
love the intent, but even then, before that, there was obviously no due process whatsoever. That was a tyrant being tyrannical. I think you were fraternizing. Therefore, you were fraternizing. That's all that came down to.
Yeah. And UCMJ is weird. The commanders need a lot of power to be able to
Sure.
do what they're expected to do. But it only really highlights the need for really great people to be in command. And
Well, exactly. A dictatorship's a great system so long as you have a benign dictator.
yeah,
How often does
um,
that happen?
and the military is not a democracy. We defend democracy. Um,
Right. So I'm not trying to say that everything needs to be exactly like civilian, but my point is that's such an example of where it can go wrong and
yeah,
horribly wrong.
and it did. And it did. And my other friend is the same thing. Of a commander going horribly wrong. Um, I mean, and this was at CISO school. His roommate brought material that was marked classified, but it was not
Simulated
real
classified.
information. Yeah, it wasn't simulated classified. It was marked actually classified, secret.
Okay.
But the information on it was not true,
Okay.
if that makes
So,
sense.
but I guess like it wasn't truly classified material and it wasn't marked simulated classified, but it was a simulation of classified, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, um, that's pretty close.
Okay.
So, uh, his roommate, like, it somehow got out that his roommate had brought back this material to the room.
Because they were instructed not to take this material home,
Oh
regardless of
yeah,
whether
you
it's
can't
real or
you can't
not.
take it you can't take it from the vault. That was the rule.
Got it.
Um, and that was our first introduction to classified material, and they were very strict about it. and pilots don't get access to classified material during UPT. Like
Oh,
their
okay.
first introduction is in their ops unit.
Sure.
Um,
Okay. Which
Sizzles
I,
get that early.
I was in Intel school, so everything was,
Everything
yeah.
is yeah. So yeah, we got that early. We got about halfway through is when you start dealing with secrets. So uh commander comes in to my buddy's apartment. They say, "Hey, we know that you've got classified material here. Where is it?" And my friend goes, "I don't know what you're talking about." And
Does he
the
did he truly not know?
no,
Like that?
he
Okay.
didn't have a clue. Um, he was a pretty quiet dude. You know, kept to himself. Went
Yeah.
to and civil school keeps you busy. So, you know, if he wasn't at the squadron, he was in his room,
Okay.
and that was about it. Um, he commander starts and the command staff start rummaging around the apartment and find classified material and kick both of them out.
Because right as soon as they found it, like he was uh guilty by association isn't even necessarily the right word, but just assumed like, oh, you had to have known about this.
Yeah, how do you not know that your roommate is bringing home classified material? It's like because I don't go through my roommate's stuff.
Right.
That's a pretty
Especially
easy. That's a
especially I
pretty
mean
easy.
especially because I mean the dynamic of roommates can vary. Sometimes your roommate's your best friend, sometimes it's just like you
You're
you
there.
just live in the same vicinity. That's it. Like yeah.
Um, yeah. So luckily for him, he got an admin discharge, so you know it's not showing up on his record.
Okay.
I don't believe it came out across as honorable, so he's you know got his benefits and everything. But man, that wrecked him. I mean, he was a classmate of ours at the academy.
Okay, and I
Um,
was about to ask, so he's an academy grad. So again, there's another $400,000 investment that's just booted.
yep.
Um,
Um,
and I totally get that you have to come down hard on someone bringing classified material, even if it's not legitimately classified. But like that's, I would argue that's the entire purpose of a training environment. The guy who brought home that should have absolutely been reamed. But even I don't, me personally, I don't even think he should have been kicked out. I think he should have been severely reprimanded so that way he actually learns while in training, so that way he doesn't do it in an operational environment.
there was a high degree of malice in that case. They were very clear. Do not bring home material. Check your pockets. Check your bags. Like
Malice.
it was very clear. He was knowingly, willingly, and repeatedly violating the rules.
Okay.
So he earned a boot, 100%. Like the
Okay.
instructions were very clear about how to handle this material correctly,
Okay.
and it wasn't one of those cases of like, ah, crap. I put this thing in my backpack as I was going from one classroom to another, and now I'm home and I realize it. And I'm gonna race back to the squadron and lock it up.
No, and that to me, I think should increase the severity of the punishment that they gave him. I still don't
Yeah.
think that's necessarily separation worthy. But that's also, I very much see this trend in the military of the zero tolerance Air Force,
Yep.
where a lot of times it's not necessarily zero tolerance. It's a lot of times stuff like that either just gets swept under the rug. Oh, this never happened,
Yeah.
or we're going to completely ruin your career over it, versus actually being able to punish someone. They learn a lesson and then they move on with their lives.
Yeah. Yep.
And we don't afford people a lot of chance to actually mess up and learn, to actually learn a lesson and develop. And especially again, this is a butter bar.
Yeah.
This is someone who is in a training environment. That is where you are supposed to mess up
Yep.
if you're going to at all. Um, by all means, mess up there. Don't mess up in the operational environment. And like I said, like it should have been like severe punishment. Like he should have like they should make him hate his life for breaking that type of rule.
Yeah.
But I
Or
think he
kick him
should
out of
have been
civil school. You know, go stick him in. Oh, you can't handle classified material. You're gonna go to services. Go
sure.
have fun being a services officer.
Yeah, you can hand out basketballs. That's fine.
Yep.
Like to me, that would almost yeah, that would be again not only like that is a punishment, but at least then the Air Force is still getting something out of that investment as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
So Yeah, I mean, could be philosophical difference. I think the rest of his character, etc., could determine whether what type of job he get or punishment he got. But I
But
don't think separation was the appropriate action.
and going after the roommate,
No,
like,
right. And so that's just dealing with him going after the roommate who is honestly innocent bystander. Like that's talk about, limiting civilian casualties, collateral damage. Like
yeah,
no, they just blew up his life for no reason
yeah,
other than being indiscriminate and vindictive.
yeah. And it's a bad decision. It's a bad decision from top to bottom.
And so the reason I bring up these stories is I do think some people be like, oh, you don't air out your family's dirty laundry, but there's also very much the sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, and it's interesting, like the trust in the military um, is at historic lows
Hmm.
recently. And this is even without the public knowing some of these stories. I think some of it is growing. Like we're very much an insular profession at this point, where military became very much a family business. So
Hmm.
family members of service members would hear these types of stories. But I feel like a lot of the civilian population writ large is unaware of this, and I'm even almost at the opposite end. I'm very much from a military family. I grew up always imagining I would do something in the military. I always wanted to serve. Had an extraordinarily high opinion of service members across the board,
Yeah.
let alone, okay, higher ranking officers. I would have assumed there's actually, you know, uh, an increase in caliber and quality as you go up in the ranks. And that is not necessarily the case because, as you just said, like sometimes it's just a matter of time and service and you didn't get a DUI. Like, so therefore you're
Hmm.
promoted to the next level.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and keep in mind, uh, this is the same commander who, the guy that kicked my buddy out for his roommate having secrets. Um, he had a radius of like how far we could go with the plane,
Okay.
right? When we were doing like cross countries, right?
Yeah.
So you can only fly so far away. Okay, fine. The plane can go farther, but you're only going to go this far. Okay, fine. Whatever. Um, I was on a flight where he violated that, flew outside of his own radius that he had, so that he could drop off a package to his daughter at college.
So rules for thee, not for me.
Yep. And
Got,
that's just another indicator of his character.
yeah, I gotta
And
love
he
leadership.
yeah. And before I got out, I'm sure he hit 20 and retired, and now he gets to do whatever he's doing, but collecting a retirement check for it.